and I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel.
Hello and welcome to Lecture 14 of OLT 322, African American Women Writers. This is the last lecture, and everyone's sad about it. I know, me too. Anyway, we're going to talk about Alice Walker and Toni Morrison. Coinciding with the civil rights movement of the 1960s, black women began to write about their experience and address their situation as a double minority or doubly exploited type of person. And it means this, you know, women, white women, black women, any woman is often the second-class citizen in her culture. So, first of all, as women, they're oppressed by men, and then second of all, as black women, there's the oppression based on their color. So based on color and based on gender, those black women are oppressed twice as much as anybody else. In their works, they tend to address the women's experience, which doesn't get the full attention from the male writers, their contemporaries. So the quest for an identity, a self-awareness, a self-consciousness as African Americans takes a new turn, and that it brings in the experience of black women and what it means to be a woman, a black woman in America. Feminist literary criticism examines the portrayal of women in art. It looks at how they are shown, what they do, what they say, the language they use, and the language that is used to describe them. And it examines their existence in a male-dominated world. There are four models of difference which are often studied. The first is biological, which basically is, the physical differences between men and women. The second is linguistics, which examines the difference in the kind of language used by men and women, and also the language as used by male and female writers and the style. Psychoanalytical. It uses the work as showing us something about the subconscious of the writer herself. And finally, cultural. A woman's work of art is considered a product of her specific culture, and that also informs us of what we can take away from the reading or the examination of the work of art. Okay, now Toni Morrison's novel Beloved. Sophie is the main character who escaped from slavery. She had 2 sons with her, but she was recaptured. However, to spare them a life of slavery, she murders them. This is an act of defiance against the slave master and the slave system, because the master owned the mother and owned the children even before they were born. So she takes away this right, this ownership from the slave master. In killing her sons, she denies the slave master power over them. Blacks and whites tend to avoid her after that, and she lives apart and raises her daughter Denver alone. Denver grows up lonely without knowing why they have to live that way. Sophie's past comes back to haunt her in the form of Paul D., a former slave that she knew before she escaped. He also doesn't know what she did. Through their love, she's rehumanized. She's returned to a normal state of living. Then a girl called Beloved appears, and she needs her help. Denver is jealous of the love of Sophie and Paul D., and to fill that gap in her life, she takes care of Beloved. And this helps to socialize her because, as we said before, she was very lonely. She just lived with her mother. So now she has companionship. Sophie also helps Beloved, and Paul D. is jealous of that help. But he's also afraid of Beloved because she's sexually tempting. Not much is known about Beloved, except that she was a slave who may have been sexually abused. A strong bond forms between the 3 women, and this represents the experience of black women sticking together and helping each other through hard times. When Paul D. learns what Sophie did in killing her sons, he leaves her, and in this way represents those men who tend to leave their women when things get difficult. This also reminds her of her past and what she did, and so she starts to fall apart mentally, and very soon after that, Beloved disappears. Their life is falling apart, and so Denver goes to town and gets a job. and this continues her path of socialization, of re-entry, and of entering into the world. Eventually, though, Paul D returns with a change of heart. Paul D has come to learn the value of forgiveness, and I quote, he says to Sophie, "Me and you, we got more yesterday than anybody. We need some kind of tomorrow." With this, he's showing that with love and an open heart, people can change, and that men and women, they can stay together, and they can work together to go forward. It is better to look ahead than to stay stuck dwelling on the past, and he's ready to do that with her. Note that here the quest for identity brings women together to help each other, and also brings men and women together through forgiveness, love, and an eye on the future. Next, we talk about Alice Walker's novel, The Color Purple. It's not so difficult as other works. Alice Walker, perhaps more than any woman African-American writer, has been at the center of the search for a new terminology to adequately convey black women's feminism. She uses the term womanist to refer to a black feminist or feminist of color who is committed to survival and wholeness of the entire people, male and female. She is responsible, serious, and loves. In her community, she is often both leader and a guardian protector of the heritage of her people. So let's talk about the characters. Celie was raped by her stepfather. She was separated from her children when they were babies. Her stepfather marries her to Albert, who doesn't care about her. He just uses her for his lust. But she plays a dutiful role of woman, mother, and wife. She represents the woman as an object. Without any humanity, she's just a mother, a caretaker figure, with no identity of her own outside that. Shug is Albert's mistress. But instead of getting jealous about it, Shug and Celie become friends, and Shug teaches her to find her own womanhood. She represents the liberated woman, but also the black experience in that she's a blues singer, and the blues carries many messages of that experience. Then there's Sophie, who represents the true womanist. She's married, but she's independently minded, and she stands up to her husband. The three women collaborate to make a quilt called Sister's Choice. A quilt is a kind of blanket. It's handmade out of scraps of material, and often there's a design, sometimes even pictures are represented through the cutting and sewing of the bits of cloth. And often women, it's traditionally a woman's activity, and it brings women together, they talk, and so it represents a collaboration of black women. And it shows the benefits of women working together. Shug also helps Celie to start a small business so that she can become economically independent. Nelty is Celie's sister, who goes off to Africa as a missionary, and on returning, she's more able to define herself. Anybody who's traveled to outside of their country will understand about that. Especially as a black woman traveling to Africa and then returning, she's much more wise about who she is. As with Beloved, but even more so, Alice Walker shows that women must work together, and by doing so redefine themselves and overcome their experiences and their environment to lead fulfilling lives. So here we've talked about feminist criticism, Toni Morrison's novel Beloved, and Alice Walker's novel The Color Purple. This brings us to the end of the series of lectures. I hope this series has helped clear up misunderstandings about the course material. As I keep mentioning, it's very important to see how each writer we have studied has added to that definition of African Americans, their identity, and that each edition was inspired by the life and times in which the writer was working. Each time period has influenced the issues which are foremost in the writer's mind. It will be interesting to explore the editions of writers from the era of Obama to see what having a black president has had as an effect in the relationships between whites and blacks, and in how blacks see themselves, and in their integration or disintegration into American society. My name is Warren Reed. Thank you for your attention. As always, if you have questions, you can email me, and I wish you the best of luck in your exams. Read, read, read.
Oh, freedom.